Geez, only like the second week of 2020 and I'm already filming reviews back to back. This year is gonna be busy, isn't it? Anyway, Selena Gomez is back with her third studio album, Rare. Selena Gomez, I shouldn't really need to introduce. You guys probably know who she is by now. Former Disney Channel star who went on to become a huge pop star in the 2010s. As I said, this is her third studio album, and believe it or not, it is her first in 5 years. The last time she released an album was Revival back in 2015. 5 years is a damn long time in the pop stratosphere. When it comes to that amount of time, the public can tend to forget about you if you're not dropping stuff consistently. Fortunately, Selena did keep her star shining very bright over the last few years with several prominent features, standalone singles, and more. So luckily she's been able to withstand that 5-year gap in a way that some artists probably wouldn't have. And it seems that the 5-year gap is largely because Selena mentioned that it took her a long time to just get to a comfortable point with this album. So hey, I mean, I guess it happens. Now I'll be honest with you guys, I don't have a ton of Selena Gomez experience. I've definitely heard a few of her bigger singles like Come and Get It and Same Old Love, and I've enjoyed tracks like It Ain't Me, her collaboration with Kygo from 2017, but I'm not quite familiar with the entirety of her discography. And even though I'm not as familiar with her music, I do have to respect her for not only taking her time with this record, but for being able to maintain relevance and popularity despite the huge gap between full-length album releases. With this record, it's 13 tracks and 41 minutes, so it also doesn't seem like Selena is interested in overstuffing. It seems like she just kind of wants to get right to the point. Going into this record, I did listen to the lead-off single Lose You to Love Me, which was her first Billboard Hot 100 #1, and at the time I thought it was fine. I didn't adore it and it could have used a better chorus, but it did grow on me a bit and I was interested in seeing Selena go for a more stripped down direction with this record because it seemed like that was what she was teasing would be the direction for a bit of time. What I found is that the album isn't quite as stripped down as I expected. Right at the start, the title track has some bounce and an interesting bass groove, and it seems like the album starts to move into more of an electronic style after that. As an intro, it doesn't sound like much you haven't heard before, but it does have the potential to be a nice, lighter empowerment anthem. Throughout the album, she shows us that even though there is pain in some of the words that she writes, she just wants to get back to a point where she can be happy. She talks about this on tracks like Dance Again or Look at Her Now, which both feel like more bouncy electro-pop bangers with more emphasis on production. There's also the Jon Bellion produced cut Vulnerable, which is a smooth electronic track that filters Selena's vocals but does so in a way that actually feels tasteful and doesn't take away from her charm. But with all the electronic tracks, we do get a few lighter songs beyond Lose You to Love Me. I personally felt like the track Cut You Off sounded like if Taylor Swift tried to do a bit of a lighter cover of Never Be the Same by Camila Cabello. But it has a nice guitar solo, the chorus can be a bit fun even if the song overall plays some things a bit safe. Ring is a particularly strong track as it's a somewhat darker pop song built on smaller but still potent guitars and a very confident vocal tone from Selena. Cheesy as it might be to some, I thought the Michael Jordan line was kind of clever and the song as a whole was earwormy enough to work. Ditto for the track Crowded Room, one that builds on light percussion clicks and spacey pianos. The song carries a few light hip-hop and R&B vibes, and combined with Selena's beautiful vocals, it's definitely one of the highest points on the album. Even when she remains up-tempo though, I think she allows herself to open up and get a little bit more personal. Let Me Get Me is a perfect example of that, as even if it's an up-tempo electro-pop bop, Selena talks a bit on this one about her mental health and her attempts to become happier. Even amidst all the punchiness of the production, she crafts something that's kind of poignant with this song. Kind of Crazy is another track that keeps things light, but does have some interesting guitar plucks that give the song a nice danceable vibe, even if the melodies throughout the song aren't the stickiest that the album has to offer. I was also a bit surprised by some of the features that prop up on this thing, like Black, who shows up on Crowded Room. The instrumental in this song feels like it was perfectly built for him. His vocals are very strong, and I think he fits perfectly up against Selena on this track. Kid Cudi also surprisingly shows up for the album's closer, A Sweeter Place, which is a song that leans a bit deeper into the pop rap roots than almost anything else on here. It sounds a bit dark, but a lot of the vocal processing and filters on the song surprisingly don't take away from the emotional vibe of it. Cudi's vocals are also great, as you would reasonably expect, and I think he and Selena play off each other very nicely here. It's easily one of the highlights of the album and definitely an appropriate closing track. Now, of quite a few of the positives that I've mentioned here, there are some things that do hold the record back for me. I think one of my biggest problems with a few of the tracks is that they sort of lack really strong hooks. I previously talked about that with Lose You to Love Me, where I thought the chorus was a bit bit clumsy in its execution, but that song did grow on me when I heard it in the context of this album. Although I wasn't totally big on the chorus of Dance Again. It had the potential to be fun, but I think the processed sound of her vocals don't do the song or her generally great voice much justice. I've mentioned it a few times how I felt like Selena sounded a bit processed on here, but I do think some of the rawness of this record gets taken away because Selena's vocals unfortunately sound too robotic at points. And I'm not blaming her for that, I'm blaming whoever produced those vocals and processed them with all those filters. Tracks like Dance Again and Cut You Off are two songs that show me that, and People You Know is another example. I was loving the somewhat darker vibes of the song, but the repetitious use of people on the chorus combined with the processed sound of it just isn't strong, and I think the song could have gone back to the drawing board a bit. I think one of the biggest disappointments in that regard is Look at Her Now. Some of the light electronic production is actually very beautiful. Selena's vocals sound amazing even with those processing and all those effects on them, and it really had the potential to be one of my favorite tracks on the album, but the constant really took me out of the song a bit. Fun is another one that disappoints me. I once again really liked how she allowed herself to be vulnerable by talking so openly about her mental health, and the instrumentals have this great sunny vibe, but the chorus on it just doesn't really stick out to me or feel as fun as it probably should be. Overall, Selena's comeback album in my eyes is just fine. To me, it doesn't really scale the heights of some of the better pop albums that I've heard in the last few years, and it definitely feels like a record for the fans, but it's definitely not bad. I didn't really dislike anything on here, and there are some nice danceable tracks that do appropriately sound like Selena finding comfort in herself and having some fun, but the album just doesn't totally stick out. It's a nice listen with some decent production, good features, and plenty of good moments with self-empowerment, but it's held back in a lot of areas. Again, the hooks get sour a bit quickly, and most unfortunately, if Selena did want to go for something more raw, I feel like the vibe is kind of lost because of all the processing on her vocals. Again, I'm not blaming that on her because I think Selena is a beautiful vocalist with some great charisma, but it feels like whoever is producing her didn't allow her to show that on this album when they put all those filters on her voice, and it's kind of a shame. All in all, it's not the most fantastic, groundbreaking record that I've heard, and it's definitely pretty spotty at points, but it does come through with some solid bops, and it is still worth hearing for yourself. It may not convert you if you aren't already into her music, but for Selena's fans, this should be everything that you wanted it to be. My favorite tracks on the album are Lose You to Love Me, Ring, Vulnerable, Let Me Get Me, Crowded Room, and A Sweeter Place. And then my least favorite track would be People You Know. Overall, on my rating scale, I'm gonna say that Selena Gomez's new album, Rare, is gonna get an okay from me. It's not incredible, it's not bad, it's there. It's a solid pop album. You'll probably find a few tracks to like in it. It doesn't last long enough to overstay its welcome, but it doesn't really stand out in its running time. It's decent enough. If you aren't a Selena fan, it probably won't convert you, but if you are, you're going to love it. But that's just my opinion on this album. What did you guys think about it? Was it everything you wanted it to be? Were you really disappointed in it? Were you just kind of indifferent to this whole thing? And was it worth the wait? Like I said, 5 years is a really long time between albums, so was this worth the wait to you? Sound off with your thoughts down in the comments section. Let's keep it civil and have some fun. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe, thanks. If not, it's no big deal, I understand. As for what's coming next, I believe next week is Halsey's new album, and I will be checking that out and giving it a review. So stay tuned for that, but until then, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.